On a damp spring morning across the vast lands of the Selva Maya Natural Reserve, in the heart of Chiapas, Mexico, Lucia Mendoza awoke to the sounds of birds and the fresh scent of wet earth. As the only daughter of Miguel Mendoza, a visionary conservationist, Lucia had an atypical childhood, caught between her family's care and the attention of creatures that, to many, were merely figures in documentaries or icons of conservation. From a very young age, Lucia was introduced to the jaguars of the reserve. Her father believed that fostering bonds between humans and animals from early on could cultivate a new generation of passionate and dedicated conservationists. Blue and Jaguar, two majestic jaguars, quickly became Lucia's inseparable companions. They were imposing creatures, yet gentle predators with her, capable of expressing a tenderness almost human. Lucia learned to walk under the watchful eyes of Blue, who sometimes extended a mottled paw to steady her when she tripped over tree roots. Jaguar, in turn, was her playmate. He loved to sneak through the vegetation with Lucia, filling the air with laughter and soft purrs. They shared peaceful moments under the shade of trees, and Jaguar would delicately watch as little Lucia showed him her discoveries in the forest. This harmonious coexistence between the girl and the jaguars was carefully supervised by caregivers and by Miguel himself, who documented each interaction, hoping one day to show the world that peaceful coexistence between species was possible and beneficial. On her 5th birthday, Lucia received a necklace from her father with a small silver pendant in the shape of a jaguar. It was a symbol of her lifelong commitment to her friends and to the conservation mission. Miguel knelt beside her, fastening the necklace around her neck, and said with a proud smile, "You, my dear, are the bridge between our worlds. The jaguars accept you as one of their own, and that is a precious gift and a great responsibility." Lucia's early years were marked by a deep sense of purpose and an immeasurable love for her feline friends. She grew up knowing that every moment with Blue and Jaguar was a lesson in life, teaching her about respect, care, and the intricate web of life that connects all creatures. However, as in all stories of growth and learning, the day would come when Lucia would have to face the reality of her friends' mission, returning to the wild where they belonged, to lead their own territories and contribute to the preservation of their species. This farewell, though necessary, would be one of the most challenging and formative moments of her life. As Lucia grew older, she also began to understand the complexity of her father's work and the broader goals of the foundation he led. She knew that the peaceful days of encounters with Blue and Jaguar would not last forever, and that they were, above all, ambassadors of their species, destined to lead independent lives in the jungle. At 11 years old, the reality of this separation knocked on Lucia's door. An autumn morning was marked by long discussions among conservationists, biologists, and her father. They prepared the transition of Blue and Jaguar back into the wild, part of the Foundation's reintroduction program. For Lucia, although proud of the significant role her friends would play in conserving their species, the news was a painful blow. On the day of departure, the reserve was bustling with final preparations. Transport boxes filled with comforts and familiarities for the jaguars were loaded and carefully inspected. Lucia spent every possible moment beside Blue and Jaguar, speaking softly to them, reinforcing the security and love she felt. "You're going home," she whispered, her words choked with emotion, "to a place where you can truly be free, where you belong." Blue, with his always perceptive expression, gently approached Lucia, rubbing his head against her hand as if understanding the magnitude of the moment. The farewell was a mixture of tears and smiles. Lucia, strengthened by her father's conviction that it was the right thing to do, waved until the trucks disappeared from sight, carrying away a significant part of her heart. The following years were ones of growth and learning for Lucia, who immersed herself in conservation and biology studies, determined to continue her family's legacy. Yet, the longing for her feline friends never left her, and the hope of seeing them again shone in her heart like an unquenchable flame. At 23, driven by nostalgia and the desire to verify the success of Blue and Jaguar's reintegration, Lucia organized an expedition to visit them in the natural reserve where they had been released. With a team of documentarians and biologists, she embarked on this emotional journey, armed with hope and fear of the unknown. Upon arriving at the reserve, the intense green of the tropical forests welcomed the team. Lucia felt herself transported back in time, each aroma and sound of the forest bringing vivid memories from her childhood. The following days were spent tracking the signs of the jaguars, using location collars that had been carefully placed on the animals before their release. Then, on a rainy afternoon, as they walked along a muddy trail, a subtle movement in the dense vegetation caught everyone's attention. Hearts pounding rapidly, cameras ready. Everyone looked in Lucia's direction, awaiting the moment that would define the trip. It was the long-awaited reunion, delicately hanging in the balance of the wild nature that was now home to Azul and Jaguar. The humid air of the tropical rainforest closed in around Lucia and her team as they advanced cautiously. Every sound of the forest seemed amplified. Every crack of a branch, every distant call of a bird created a soundscape that was both beautiful and intimidating. Lucia, leading the group, felt the weight of expectation pressing on her shoulders. Her eyes scanned the environment incessantly, trying to discern any movement indicating the presence of her old companions. Hours passed slowly, and the sun began to tilt westward, casting long shadows through the trees. The local guide, a man named Carlos, who knew the forest like the back of his hand, signaled for everyone to remain silent. They had entered an area where, according to the trackers, Azul and Jaguar had been seen recently. Lucia felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She knew that the jaguars, even if they recognized her presence, could have changed significantly after years in the jungle. They were no longer the young animals that interacted with her at the reserve. Now they were predators adapted to the inhospitable environment. Suddenly, Carlos stopped and silently pointed to a dense thicket ahead. Subtle movements could be seen, and a low sound, almost a purr, was audible. Lucia's heart raced. She held her breath, the camera ready in her hands as she tried to control the tremor of her anticipation. The vegetation stirred more intensely, and then an imposing figure slowly emerged. It was Jaguar, recognizable by the characteristic spots on his coat and his dominant posture. He stopped and looked directly at Lucia. Their eyes met, and for a moment the world around them seemed to disappear. Was it a look of recognition or simple curiosity? Lucia couldn't say. Jaguar took a step forward, his majestic presence unmistakable. Lucia noticed the tension among her team members, all aware of the potential danger of an adult jaguar in its natural habitat. She herself felt a respectful fear, mixed with a desperate hope for connection. She took a step forward, slightly separating from the group, and spoke softly, using the same tone she used as a child. "Jaguar, it's me, Lucia," she said, her voice trembling but clear. There was no guarantee that Jaguar would understand her words, but she hoped that the familiar tone might trigger some memory. The jaguar tilted his head, observing her intently. The group held their breath, watching this silent exchange. After a tense moment, Jaguar emitted a low sound, a gentle purr that in the past, Lucia would recognize as a sign of acknowledgement. Carlos whispered to the group to stay calm and avoid sudden movements. Everyone was aware that they were at a critical point, where any action could be interpreted as a threat. Jaguar took another step forward, his eyes still fixed on Lucia. She remained still, her heart pounding so loudly that she feared he could hear it. Then slowly, the jaguar moved closer, his posture relaxing slightly, a sign Lucia hoped was one of acceptance. As Jaguar approached, each of his steps silent and graceful, Lucia felt a mixture of relief and joy flood her being. The tension in the air began to dissipate as Jaguar continued to emit low purrs, which she interpreted as signs of recognition. She remembered these sounds from her childhood. They were the same soothing vocalizations he made when they were together at the reserve. Jaguar stopped a few steps from Lucia, his large golden eyes fixed on her. Suddenly, with a surprising grace for a predator of his size, he moved closer and gently rubbed his body against Lucia's legs, a typical behavior of jaguars marking territory, but in this case it seemed to be a gesture of recognition. Lucia, overcoming her initial fear, reached out and gently touched Jaguar's head, feeling the familiarity, that gentle touch of his soft fur. An emotional smile formed on her lips as tears welled up in her eyes. Jaguar then did something that surprised everyone. He sat close to Lucia, maintaining constant eye contact, as if he wanted to ensure that she was truly there with him. Lucia knelt down, bringing herself to the same eye level as the jaguar, feeling a wave of emotions overflowing within her. The reunion was more than she could have hoped for. After the heartfelt reunion, Lucia spent a few hours observing Jaguar in his territory, in the forest. Watching him interact with the environment, and eventually with Azul, who appeared later, it was evident that both were well adapted and thriving in their natural habitat. Observing them in their habitat gave Lucia a new perspective on the importance of the conservation work her family had embraced. It was a living proof that efforts to reintroduce animals into their natural environment could succeed, a testament to her father's legacy. As the afternoon gave way to twilight, Lucia knew it was time to say goodbye once again. With a heavy heart, she approached Jaguar for a final farewell. This time, there were no tears, only a feeling of gratitude and fulfillment. She whispered words of goodbye, promising to continue fighting for the cause that had brought them together. Jaguar, in turn, seemed to understand that this moment was a farewell. With a final, piercing look and a gentle touch of his head on Lucia's hand, he turned and disappeared silently among the trees of the dense forest, returning to the shadows that were now his home. Lucia returned to civilization, carrying not only the memories of this emotional encounter, but also a renewed passion for conservation. She was determined to follow in her father's footsteps, expanding and promoting efforts to ensure a future where humans and animals could coexist in harmony. Jaguar's farewell reinforced her commitment to this future, to the protection of wild beings and the preservation of the natural world. This reunion, captured in images that soon circulated around the world, became a powerful symbol of the possible connection between humans and animals, and an eloquent testimony to the urgent need for environmental conservation.